These are two Despatch boxes from the end of the 19th century. What's a Despatch box? Well, basically, it's a box for keeping important papers and documents. Typically, they're made of leather on softwood, a pine or a deal, but they've got a very strong lock, normally a Brahma lock or something similar, to really protect those important letters. They're commonly associated with the different offices of government. The Chancellor of the Exchequer's red box is probably the most famous, but lots of civil offices throughout Britain and the Empire use Despatch boxes. We've had them stamped for Jamaica, New Zealand, Ireland before. And typically those official government or colonial ones are red in colour. This is a black one. It was privately owned, probably, by a guy called Mr. Mark Collinson. And Mark is spelt the French way with a C. Now, this is probably Mark Cunningham Collinson, who worked at the London Patent Office and lived at Castleknow Villas in Barnes. It's marked number 1B, suggesting that he had more than one box. So let's just show you that little brass nameplate he's put on there. This one was owned by somebody with the initials MTC. We'll never find out who that was. And they favoured a red box. Now, both of these cases, you can see they've probably lost their keys at some stage. Both locks are sprung. This one is not marked Brahma, but it's very similar to a Brahma lock. And so when the keys have been lost, somebody has tried to force open the lock to get to the contents. Same has happened on this one. And as a consequence, we've replaced the keys so that they're usable. Now, the lock on this one, although it's not marked Brahma, it works in the same way. You push it in and you turn it. The key is very similar to a Brahma, but it's got an extra little layer of security, which is quite a nice touch. And that is, you also slide this scutcheon across and then the case will open. And if you don't slide that escutcheon, it doesn't work. If you know, you know. If you don't, you can spend hours trying to work out why the box isn't opening. So let's open the Collinson one as well. So they've both got this lip to the bottom section to give a nice secure fitting to the top. Also to stop any rain getting in perhaps and damaging the papers. This box is quite plain to the inside. We've got the maker's marks either side of the lock, which is fairly typical of Wickwar. And the same on this one as well. We'll come in and have a closer look at these in a minute. Now, this box is a little bit more involved, not just with the sliding escutcheon on the lock, but if we look at the hinges, it's got good strong brass quadrant hinges, but you've also got a hinge pin which extends the width of the box. So you've got a hinge on either corner and the pin running all the way along the back, just to really make it a little bit more secure. It's also got these ribbons to put papers in to the top, which is just a nice little extra. So this would have been a more expensive box when it was made, probably, than this one. I would imagine that Wickwar did 3 or 4 different qualities of box that you could buy. It's also more desirable now because it's a red one. Red boxes tend to sell much quicker than the darker ones. There's far more demand for them. But it's probably slightly later in date than this one. But let's take the camera off the tripod, move in, and you can have a closer look, and then we can explain that a little bit more. So here we can see Wickwar's details, and it says Wickwar Co, 6 Poland Street, and on the other side of the lock, manufacturers to Her Majesty's Stationery Office. Well, Wickwar were probably established by Hannah Wickwar in the 1820s. We know that she had premises at 10 Dorset Street from at least 1823. But by 1839, Wickwar had moved to 6 Poland Street in Soho, and John Wickwar was in charge. After that, by round about 1865, Francis Wickwar was in charge, and then the company carried on through the 19th century, but by 1899 we can't find them listed anymore. Now, if we look at the 2 stamps here, this is perhaps another indicator of why this red one is probably a little bit later in date than the other. So you can look at the font there to Wickwar Manufacturer, Poland Street, London, and then if we compare it to this one, it looks like it's probably later in date, much more modern looking font to the other one. While we're here, we can also see that this lock is stamped J. Brahma, 124 Piccadilly, whereas the other lock is blank. Now, we know that Mark Collinson died in September 1884, which also helps to date this black box, and suggests that it's a little bit earlier than the red box in date. Another indicator of the slightly earlier date of this one is the handle to the top. You can see that we've got a good brass swan neck handle here. And to this one, we have got more of a flush campaign handle, which we associate with the end of the 19th century. Despatch boxes have become very popular over the last few years, and certainly the demand for them has really increased, and likewise prices have gone up, and certainly the red ones are really in demand, especially if they've got an interesting owner to them or an interesting office of state marked to them. Again, ones which have got a royal connection, that helps the value as well. So to sum them up, they're 2 Despatch boxes made by the company, the prolific company of Wickwar Co of 6 Poland Street. They're both late 19th century. The darker one's going to be a little bit earlier than this one, and they're made of leather on softwood, and both with very good strong locks to keep the contents safe.